happiest couples have sex on average once a week or more. And there's that, a direct relationship in keeping the relationship strong, and that physical intimacy is a huge part of it. But so many people are just like, well, I can't talk to my doctor about it, or doctors don't even know what to do. They just prescribe testosterone, and oftentimes that's it. And that can help sometimes. But I think so many times people are just like not aware of what even to who to talk to or how to have the conversation. So it's like a vicious cycle around like, well, I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to hurt my partner's feelings. They don't want to talk about it because they don't want to hurt my feelings. So we're just going to ignore and sweep it under the rug and pretend like, oh, that's not important to us anymore. It's like a very common way of how this goes.
Yeah. What do you think some causes are? I mean, never happened to me, but some people, they might be in a relationship for a long time, and I think sometimes people get into, I think they become complacent, or they fall into a routine. The kids come into play, and all of a sudden they say, we don't have sex anymore. I'm like, why not? I'm like, what? This doesn't happen. Well, what do you mean you don't know? They don't really have an answer. It's like, and then they'll try different things. They might bring somebody else in. That might be okay, for a while. But I said, what about the connection y'all have between each other? It's kind of not there. I'm like, well, what happened though? They don't know. I'm like, how do you not know?
Well, because a lot, it's like, I think when we ask that question, so much of the time people are like, okay, well, nobody cheated on anybody, nobody's abusive. Like, the most common people I work with are people that, they're in these long-term relationships and they still have like immense love and care, but just like, it's exactly what you say. It's like, okay, well, we care about each other and we love each other, but like, that's just like it just went away. And then it just can feel like your roommates, and it's awkward, and it's like, and then like to rip the Band-Aid off sometimes it's just like, well, like if it doesn't go well, we haven't done this in so long, and then you can feel rejected. And it's almost all those feelings that we can get of when we start dating, and it's like, oh my gosh, are they going to kiss me? Are they going to call? And all those things that happen, we can actually have that with our long-term partner. If we haven't been intimate with them in a while, we can have all that come back. So I think some of what happens, like for one, I do want to tell people, like, one of the first steps with this is go and take my quiz at libidoquiz.com, because what you're going to find there it's a quiz where it's going to tell you the top root causes based upon your quiz answers of low libido. And then it'll spit out like things like, oh, because you answered this, you should ask your doctor about getting tested for this. And here's your lab test. So it's a really cool quiz at libidoquiz.com. And that's going to look at the physical side of things. And so sometimes, in answer to your question here, like, okay, where does it go? Sometimes it is a largely a physical problem, right? And so we do want to look at those things. They are imbalances in the body. But oftentimes it's people not understanding another component of the root cause is not understanding like the new relationship energy. And the story I like to talk about for this one is I was listening to this great lecture by Richard Bandler, who is the founder of NLP, one of the co-founders, which is a brain retraining program. Largely, it stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And he was talking about when he first was like getting ready to get married. And his story went something like this. It was like people were coming up to him and saying things like, well, I guess the sex is going to go downhill now that you're going to get married, right? And so his response to that is just like really stuck with me. And I think it's so well done, because his response was, you mean I'm going to do something worse? I'm going to do something over and over and over and over again. I'm going to practice something over and over and over and over again and get worse at it? And it's like, that should be a keynote to everybody to say, wow, if I pick up the guitar, if I pick up golf, if I, learn a new language, whatever you're doing, if you practice over and over and over again, you're going to get better at it. Like you might not be the Michael Jordan of basketball, but you're going to get better at something that you practice over and over again. So that's a big cue to say, step back and say, okay, there's something else going on here. Because if we're practicing something over and over and over again with the same person over and over and over again, if we're doing this well, we should actually get better. It should get deeper. It should get more profound, not the other way around. So I can say more about that, but I want to pause because I just gave you a mouthful.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, okay, I'm gonna use myself as an experience. I remember it's been times in my life where I've met women and been around them for a couple months, a couple years, and they turned me off. And it's probably based on something they said, weight gain, and I'm just not attracted to them no more. I mean, I think that's, to me, that's understandable. And there's some guys that, maybe they're taking some type of pills, and that's a problem. Stuff like that happens. But I'm gonna say sometimes when I listen to some couples, I be thinking, I could be wrong. I used to think maybe y'all weren't ever attracted to each other. Oh shit! I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I definitely think we need to talk about the science of attraction, the science of dopamine, and yes, there can be times in life where things change, right? We do evolve, we do change. It is something that can happen from a standpoint of relationship where it's okay, clear values are some people just they change their values. They change what's important to them. And so I do think, and I am divorced, and that was my divorce was a perfect example of oh yeah, we started and we were kind of in alignment with values. And as life went on, we went in completely different directions with our goals, with what we wanted to do in life. And we were just moving away from each other at rapid pace. So there is a legitimate thing that happens, I think, in human evolving, that we can evolve in completely different ways and go different directions. And I think more often than not, one of the bigger problems is not understanding that the impact of how new relationship energy works. And so a lot of that new relationship energy where it's oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I can't wait. All of that, or I should say a lot of that, is driven by dopamine. And dopamine is that brain chemical that is, a lot of people know it as reward, I get this thing, we kiss for the first time, and the bells and the whistles and all of that's related to dopamine, but it's also related to motivation. So with new relationship energy, this is how it goes. It's we meet somebody, we get asked out, or we ask somebody out, and we set a date for Friday, and the brain is oh, I can't wait for Friday. I'm going to wear this. We're going to go here. We're going to do this. Yeah. And all of that's dopamine. And then we get the reward. We have that date. If it goes well, huge dopamine. And then we go back into small dopamine as that, as it's building again. Are they going to call? Are they going to text? When's our next date? When's our first kiss? When we're going to make love for the first time? And so then after a while, we move in, or we combine our lives in various different ways. And what winds up happening is we're all on top of each other, and we know where they are at any given time. We know when we're going to talk. We know what's happening every night of the week. And this is not going to increase our dopamine, right? If anything, it actually is going to, in many ways, do the opposite. So we start almost moving away from each other, and there's ways we could actually continue to create that dopamine during relationship. During long-term relationship. And that's some of what I teach people to do, is how do we actually take those principles and apply them to long-term relationships, because that's largely what can help that relationship also stay exciting and keep us from being oh, what's that next greatest thing, because we're chasing that dopamine. We actually keep that dopamine and use some of those principles internally. But if we don't know how to do that, then that energy dies, the motivation dies, and it's a dopamine thing in many cases. But the way people say it is like exactly like you're presenting here is like, well, I don't know what happened. Like, we just don't do it anymore.
Yeah. I think what you just explained, I'm gonna say most people don't understand how it happens. And the thing is, when I first almost every relationship I've been in, I don't know how I knew, but I knew that it wasn't going to stay the way it was in the beginning forever. That's just not. And let's say it did stay that way forever. I would burn out, and she would burn out, because the high would be so much, so often. It just, you can't sustain a relationship like that.
Right.
So, but I think a lot of people, they think it's supposed to be the same, the way it was in the beginning forever. That's just not practical.
It's not practical. No, I mean, and that's, there is an element of like, yes, it's not going to be those crazy, like when my partner and I, like when we first met, any night we spent the night together, we were up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, right? And it was like, okay, well, that was like really fun. We were just talking last night around like, gosh, can you imagine? It was like 10 o'clock, on Sunday, like I gotta get to bed. And it's like, wow, it was just like so wild to look back at that energy, and you're just like fueled on it. And